Now, we're joined by Dr Martin Henman, who is the coordinator of the Centre for the Practice of Pharmacy in Trinity College. He's also an associate professor on the subject.
He is here today to tell us exactly what are in e-cigarettes, what is in them, well, how much they'll tell us about what's in them, and to debunk some of the common myths about them. We've just been plying you with questions, actually, because it is an area that we know very little about, and that goes for the professionals in the industry as well, because we haven't been using e-cigarettes long enough to know the long-term effects of them.
That's right, yes. Nicotine in the cigarettes there, in the e-cigarettes, there's nicotine water, there's propylene glycol and glycerin, which are just there to help the
Are any of these things bad for us, Martin?
Not really, no. Not as far as we can tell. Most of those substances have been tested in the past. However, we don't know their effects when used in this way long term, because nobody's ever inhaled them long term.
Okay, I thought there was a question over propylene.
Well, there is over some of the propylene glycol, other propylene glycol ethers, because some of them are used in antifreeze, and we know very definitely that they are dangerous. And propylene glycol is used to make smoke in theatres and things like that. But once again, we don't really know in the longer term at these sorts of amounts whether it's dangerous or not.
And the actual mechanism you use to get the nicotine into your system, the vapour, these water droplets, that's a bit of a game changer as well, because nobody's been doing that up until now.
That's right, and each of the cigarette types that are produced seem to not necessarily produce the same size droplets, so some of them could be better than others. What happens is that they are pulled in as you breathe in. Some of them will land in the mouth and on the back of the throat, and some of the nicotine will get in that way, and the rest of it goes right down into the lungs. And if the droplets are the right size and gets to the bottom of the lungs, then they'll be very quickly absorbed. So this is why the nicotine gets in very quickly there, because the surface area of the lungs is very great.
So is that way of smoking, well, not smoking, but of getting the nicotine in, the vapour, is that inherently dangerous, or is it more about what you're actually inhaling?
It's really probably more about what you're inhaling,
okay.
but the thing is that you need to know what's in what you're inhaling before you start it.
Okay, we know what's in them. And we think we know what's in them. As far as we know, they're not particularly harmful, but the jury is out on that. Do they actually work?
Well, they certainly produce enough nicotine in the bloodstream to keep people addicted to nicotine, yes.
But
so that's a way of working, if you like.
Their purpose is to wean people off cigarettes, tobacco-filled cigarettes.
I don't know that that's actually their purpose. Nicotine replacement products are designed to do that as well.
To make profit for tobacco companies, okay.
So, but nevertheless, obviously it's better than smoking, because you're not taking in all of the other chemicals that come with burning the leaves.
Right, now can I ask you, as a scientist, and I suppose also somebody who's involved in the medical and health area of science, are any of these things designated poisons? Are they officially, clinically classed as poisons?
Nicotine, we know, is a poison. The loophole seems to have been that it was tobacco that was regulated rather than tobacco products, and so hence you can get around that. But we do know that nicotine itself is a poison. Okay, but now that there's no tobacco products, then we're talking about delivering nicotine, and if that is a poison, then how can that be legally permissible? Because they needed to change the law in order to bring it in specifically to have it written down,
and they haven't done that.
And that's not been done by a number of countries. And that's not been done by a number of countries.
Okay. And you were saying, Doctor, which is amazing to me, is that we simply don't know what the long-term effects of nicotine in isolation are on an individual, which is incredible considering how many decades humans have been putting nicotine into their systems. Yes,
but on the other hand, we've never had a cigarette which didn't have nicotine in, and so therefore we haven't got that to compare with the ones that have nicotine and all of the other tobacco things.
You know what you were saying is in an e-cigarette. Is that in all of them? I mean, can we say we know that there's glycerin, there's propylene glycol,
nicotine water, and then some flavouring?
So do we know
we don't know what all the flavourings are,
okay,
for example, although a lot of them do say it. See, the difficulty is that these products are not regulated as medicinal products, and so therefore the manufacturers don't have to be entirely accurate in all of their ingredients.
And the actual casing, you were saying, is an issue.
If they make a million of those packages and then run out of one of the ingredients, they could change the ingredient and not change the package. So that's part of a problem, whereas you couldn't do that if it were a medicinal product.
And you were saying some of the casing could be leaching in to what you're inhaling? You just don't know.
We don't know. We know that there are materials there used in the packaging to hold the nicotine fluid, but we don't know its quality, and so it's not really been tested to see whether small amounts of metal or other plastic material would get into it.
So there are incidents of them blowing up, so the heat involved is causing some form of chemical reaction which could effectively take your face off.
In a small space, yeah. And nicotine itself, of course, if you were to get hold of the refill cartridges, that is extremely dangerous, and there are a number of instances of poisoning in children.
The other thing is that, and I'll play devil's advocate here, is that they'll say, well, you can't prove that they are unsafe.
Isn't that what the tobacco industry said for decades?
Well, that's basically what they're saying. You can't turn around and say, well, we know for definite that these are unsafe, so therefore until such time as you do, the jury is out, de facto they're safe.
No, that's not true.
No, I know it's not true, but that's what they will say, and it's a hard argument to refute, isn't it?
Yes. On the other hand, do I want to have to maintain an addiction to something for all of my life? And that's really all that I'm doing with the nicotine cigarettes.
Martin, look, if somebody arrived if we'd never had cigarettes up to this point, somebody arrived with cigarettes now and tried to sell it to the populace, they'd be hung, drawn and quartered. They'd be taken to the Hague, to the Court of Human Rights. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, you probably remember the old Bob Newhart sketch with him phoning Walter Raleigh in America and finding out about them and
actually,
burning
maybe we
leaves.
Should play that again. It might have to turn people off.
It would be a good one.
If people are at home right now and they're considering using e-cigarettes to help them wean themselves off cigarettes, what advice would you give them?
Well, if they want to help wean themselves off cigarettes, I would go and ask somebody, a healthcare professional inevitably. First of all, I'd go to a doctor or a pharmacist or somebody like that, one of the smoking cessation programs, and try there. If, however, I didn't want to do that, I would start there, but that would be my ultimate goal, would be to go and get help to break the addiction. Because I don't want to stay.
For you, it's about breaking the addiction.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
What about the patches and the gums?
Patches and gums are fine because they deliver much less, and we know that they deliver much less. They just take the craving. They just take the craving off the cigarettes, whereas the e-cigarettes, you get almost as much nicotine from them as you do from a cigarette.
Dr. Martin
Doctor, thank you very much. Very interesting.
And indeed, thanks to McCabe's Pharmacy for the display which they provided for us here today.
Now let's take the news with Stephen Murphy.